5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You crazy mother.
Thanks for listening to Skip the Small Talk, a podcast that gets to the point with short bite-sized clips for anyone in a hurry. I'm your host, Matt Richardson. So, I'd have to ask you, because I've never really met an astrophysicist, but do you believe in aliens?
No.
No, just flat out.
No.
Wow. Why?
Well,
I do. I guess I believe in the possibility of them, but if I were to have to gamble on it, I'd probably believe in aliens. So,
okay.
And why don't you?
Well, let's talk this through.
Okay.
I'll ask you that first.
Okay. Why do I?
Why do you think there are aliens?
Okay, that's a good idea, because then you'll prove my theory possibly wrong, right? Okay.
And what the answer you're probably going to give is very commonsensical.
Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
Yeah. Well, my answer would be the universe is so massive, and if you want to even think that the universe is infinite, the concept of infinite means that there's another planet with me out there, a number of me's out there. So that is just too much to fathom. But the idea that there's at least one planet out there with some sort of microbial life, I think is 100% factual, because we know that Earth is just a moist, moldy ball rock that's floating around like a sun that's habitable, and there's tons of other ones out there that are looking just like Earth. So I think that would be the reason. I think it's extremely rare, but I think there's still life, even if it's plant life or microbial life.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, you brought up a premise that I disagree with, which is the infinite universe. Okay. And that kind of goes hand in hand with the multiverse theory as well.
Correct.
So I can get to that in a bit, but for the sake of conversation, let's say that the universe is massive, which it is, trillions and trillions of galaxies. You would still think that even with our observable universe as large as it is, there's probably life out there.
Yeah, okay. For sure.
So why would you think that?
Why would I think there's life out there? Because we are life out there. And to think that there's not other life out there seems, in a sense, like a humanistic, egotistical point of view, because it's just like thinking the universe revolves around us, which we found out it didn't, I think that's a very hard thing not to look at, because there are microbes, there are things on the planet that you can technically send off in an asteroid to another planet, and they could survive in space and infect that planet with life. So the transpermia hypothesis is what the idea that life on Earth originated from a comet or from a meteorite crashing into a planet that was ready to take on life but didn't have the necessary ingredients, and it came from a seed, like pollen in the forest. That's something that's pretty believable for me.
So my next question for you is this. Off the top of your head, what would you say are the basic conditions for life? Just to give you an example, you hear about the Goldilocks zone, that the Earth is in and around the sun. If it's too far, it's too cold for life. If it's too close, it's too hot for life. We're right where it needs to be. So that's one condition for life. What others can you think of?
For life that we know of, oxygen, all of the ingredients that makes up carbon, that makes up life.
Hydrogen.
I'm not a scientist like that, but the basic ingredients for life. But I also think that that's also a perspective of just being on Earth. It's the downfall of only being a human being on planet Earth only. I think that there could also... we are such a weird type of creature alone that to think that there's not an ocean somewhere, a planet that has oceans full of Mercury, and there could be gas aliens that breathe in the different air than us. That doesn't seem so far-fetched, because if they existed, they would look at us like we're the frickin' nah, there's no one who breathes in oxygen. That's what we fart out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that that's equally possible. Mm-hmm. Life is already so frickin' crazy, and just crazy that we exist. I think that to think that other things can't exist is just crazy.
Okay.
What about you? So tell me now why you think life doesn't exist, and why we're the only ones in the universe.
Well, in short, because although there are an incredibly high number of galaxies out there, and an incredibly high number of stars in each galaxy, and probably a very high number of planets out there, there are so many factors that need to be absolutely perfect, not close to perfect, but absolutely perfect for any type of life. I don't care if it's carbon-based or this theoretical silica-based life or other types of life. Everything needs to be absolutely perfect for and I'm not even getting to humans.
Yeah.
For even single-celled
To start.
organisms.
You're saying to start,
even
right?
start.
Yeah.
And we don't even know how life began. You probably know that Darwin's book is called Origin of Species, but a lot of people mistake it and they call it the origin of life and think that, oh, well, Darwin's theory explains the origin of life. Well, no, his theory of evolution presupposes that life exists. And the closest we've gotten to having a theory for how organic molecules came together and started the chain to single-celled organisms and beyond was the Watson and Crick experiment, I believe, where they took lightning bolts and put it in water filled with organic matter to see what would happen.
And the primordial ooze theory or something like that? Yeah. Okay.
And for a couple decades, or many decades, they thought that was it. But then that study got peer-reviewed by multiple people and it fell apart. So we don't really know how life exists nor how to replicate it.
Got it.
But we do know, just from organic chemistry basically, what needs to happen for organic chemicals to even start coming together.
Okay.
But before we even get to that point, in order to have life, you need to have a planet.
True.
And in order to have a planet, you need to have stars. In order to have stars, you need to have galaxies.
But aren't we aware of habitable planets out there in the Goldilocks zone and other star systems? And wasn't Mars technically possibly one of them? Because there's evidence that shows that there may be microbes on Mars, but not only that, fresh water. Mars might have been a prehistoric Earth in a sense. There is evidence, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is evidence that there are planets out there in habitable zones and star systems. There are Earth-like planets out there. They believe they have water. I know there's no evidence of them. We don't have a probe in their atmosphere. But there's evidence that shows that these planets are by habitable zones, right, in Goldilocks zones. So if that's the case, and we also know that the building blocks of life can survive in outer space. They're like, little astronauts that can survive in a rock. You could flick them over to there. So to think that even life originated here is crazy. I do believe that life originated maybe the way that you're describing, or could have described, but it could have probably happened one place. Maybe it's so rare and so hard to do that it happened only one time in the universe. But that one time is all it needed, because then after that, it just spread. It just spread like, a virus across the galaxy. Thanks for listening to Skip the Small Talk podcast. If you like the video, smash that like and subscribe button to help the page grow. Thanks everyone. Until next time.